Welcome back. If you're tuning in again, thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching. I made this video and it's kind of going viral at the moment. It's getting a lot of feedback. So I made this video and I think it struck a chord with a lot of people. And one of the reasons that I brought up was about the cost of living and the things that have changed during my time away or during my time here. I want to talk to you about Berlin, actually. The cost of living in Berlin. So I actually lived there for almost 10 years. The first time I went there was 2011, and then I lived there again from 2013 till 2019, and then again for another couple of years after that. I did get stuck during COVID, which kind of sucked, but we all went through that. Anyway, when I had first moved to Berlin, one of the reasons actually choosing to live there was because of how cheap it was. And don't get me wrong, it's also an amazing city. If you've been there, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. When I first moved there, I was paying €300 a month for my rent. And I did live with a roommate, but you still could find flats then for €200 to €300 for your own apartment for a whole month. And that includes all the utilities. That's quite, I know it sounds ridiculously cheap. There are a lot of places also around Europe that were like that, but for a capital city, like the capital of Germany, to be so cheap, you know, compare that to London, compare that to Sydney. Oh, Sydney's not the capital, but you know what I mean. Compare that to New York, that's very cheap. The quality of life, I must say, was amazing. The public transport there, you can get around everywhere within half an hour of the whole city. The underground network there was built over 100 years ago. It is one of the most sophisticated systems in the world, and it just works. Even over several years, they've had specials for the transport. For example, a few years ago, they had a €9 ticket, and for a whole month, you paid €9 and you could travel anywhere in Germany. And then it was so successful, the next year they did it for €29, which is still extremely affordable. And you could travel the whole of Germany on these trains, on these sophisticated networks, get everywhere, explore the country. It was amazing. It was great for the economy. It was great for people. The trains were a little packed, but this is also a lot better for the environment. We're not having too many cars on the road. A lot of people there, they ride their bikes, and that's another thing I want to talk about. Like European cities, they're so, compact. If you like that way of living, I know that sometimes, you might be in these apartments and sometimes you might feel like you're living on top of each other. You don't have that like white picket fence kind of Australian American dream where you have the house and the backyard and, but you sacrifice like time getting to places. So say for example in a city like Melbourne or Sydney, you can live on one side, or say you have a friend on the other, and it can take you up to 2 to 3 hours to get from one side of the city to the other, which is astronomical. And that could be one way. The price of Berlin has gone up a lot. Just like Australia, just like every other country in the world, we're all facing this giant crisis where, I think COVID was to blame for that. Well, the governments and their reaction or their overreaction to COVID, but that's a whole other story. I just wanted to talk about my time in Berlin. I think we have a lot to learn from a city like that. It's open, it's free, it felt very safe, even though sometimes there were some areas that seemed a little dodgy. I never once saw fighting on the streets. It's not like when you're in Melbourne or Sydney and you walk down King Street and, you see all these punch-ups after the pubs are closing, and like, that's very much an Australian / maybe American thing too. No, in that city, there was no violence. There was a strong sense of compassion towards just people in general. I think a lot of it also comes from the history and about not wanting to make the same mistakes of the past. And if I'm honest with you, the only reason I left this city was visa stuff, Brexit. I had a British passport and Britain decided to leave the EU, and then, well, I can't live in the EU anymore. So that was that. Sometimes these things just are taken away from us. But I do want to say about how an amazing city it is. Even now, the rents they've tripled. But even triple that, it's still cheap. And I guess it also depends on what kind of job you're working. what kind of work you do, but I found the work-life balance there was great. For me to go catch up with a friend, the public transport runs 24 hours a day, every 4 minutes, you know what I mean? The only issue now we're having is, well, the crisis of the world, these wars that are going on, which sucks. A lot of people have become refugees and have had to leave their countries, and just the way of life there was great. The winter was a little bleak. I found, we can always take a holiday. I'm not saying any city is better than any other city. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's what you make it. It's who you're with. It's the connections you make, the purpose you have, the love surrounding you. I've never felt particularly attached to one place. I moved around a lot as a kid, come from a background of army family where they moved around a lot, and nowhere in particular ever was called home. Just everywhere is home. I'm sure some of you understand this. I'm sure some of you have never left your home city. Been to over 50 countries. I've lived in several different countries. I've spent months at a time in London, in New York, in Hungary, in Spain, working as a musician and a filmmaker, and luckily those jobs were able to take me around the world and to lots of different places. Everyone isn't always so lucky, and by doing these things, I've had to forego certain experiences, like the dream, the white picket fence, the wife and the 2 kids, the dog, whatever. If that's the life for you, that's the life for you. Another thing I must say that is amazing about Berlin is they have these things called Spätis. Spätkauf, it means late night shop. And it's like a 7-Eleven. They're open generally until about 3, 4 or 5 in the morning, and then they open up again, from 8 a.m. So they're very rarely closed. And they're like mini markets, except we have one very different thing I've noticed about living in Australia and these European countries. So in Germany, it's actually legal to drink in public. And not that I'm condoning drinking or saying drinking is the be all and end all of things. In fact, I don't even like to drink anymore. But the fact that you can do this and have access to this, it's like people don't abuse it. In Australia, because it is so expensive to drink or to go out, people will first go to the bottle shop, stay at home, pound as many drinks as they can as fast as possible, get blind drunk, then go out just to save money. Whereas in Germany, you go to one of these Spätis, these 7-Elevens, you can grab a beer, you can walk down the street and have a drink of it, because you don't need to save your money getting drunk. People don't end up getting drunk. And then the kind of drunk where people start fights with each other. It's just this weird system that works. And another great thing is every entire supermarket in Germany has these bottle return machines, and you take the bottle to the machine and they will give you money, right? I know we have this in Australia now, but a lot of the time we have 1 or 2 of them in one major city, and it's not a supermarket. You've got to drive out all the way to the country, and then you collect a year's worth of cans and then return them, and you might get $200 or something. In Germany, for each can or plastic bottle, you get 25 cents, 25 euro cents. Here we get 10 Australian cents. Now, remember, over there, they earn less, but they're getting more back on recycling. So you never see bottles laying around on the street. If you do, they're picked up in seconds. That's money, that's gold. And another great thing is for the sad people that are, say, homeless or or in situations where they might need some extra money, they go around and instead of maybe asking you for money, they will say, hey, can I have your empty bottle? And it's please, yes, let's recycle, let's give a little bit back to the world. And it's just these small things that I found worked. Now, I'm not saying I'm moving back to Germany. I do spend a lot of time there. My older brother lives there. And Germany will always hold a special place in my heart, or Berlin at least. But I just wanted to say how just some of these simple little things make the most difference in the world. In another city or another country, another place in the world, and have you seen something that you thought, why are we not doing that back home? Why do we not have those same systems in place? And how can we make our country a better place to live a more affordable place to live, and a more enjoyable and safer place to live. So, I guess it begs the question, are we still the lucky country? Or is it just what we make of it? Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll be back, and hopefully with some zany travel stories. So actually, during my time living in Berlin, I was actually working mainly as a street musician. And I know in Australia a lot of people saw that job as being a bum or whatever. But funnily enough, it was the highest paying job I ever had. I had the most fun doing it. I put a smile on people's faces, and I got to go to work every day and, you know, play music, which was amazing. I tried here in Australia. Sadly, because of the card thing, we don't carry cash anymore, and no one wants to really donate to the street performers. If you are one yourself, or if you know of any, you will understand there are certain countries are better to play than others, and sadly there's just not that respect here for street music. So I do my other profession, which is filming. We do have some travel coming up. I know this has just been another rant, and I do have some travel coming up. I booked a ticket back to Europe. I'm gonna go visit a few of the Eastern Bloc countries, travel around Montenegro, Bosnia, Croatia, explore some of my family heritage, and spend some time in Germany. And then maybe reassess, is Australia the place I need to be? Or is Europe the place I need to be? Or can you just live a nomadic life and do both?